You know those moments, right, when you just stumble upon a place somewhere maybe unexpected, and it's just brimming with stories you never knew.
Oh, absolutely. Happens all the time.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of discovery. It's tucked away right here in Minnesota.
Yeah, you don't always need to travel far for really dramatic, fascinating landscapes. Minnesota's got some real gems.
And today's gem is Minneopa State Park. Specifically, we're focusing on its really remarkable double waterfall.
It's a place that just speaks volumes, you
Yeah.
know, about nature's power, but also about the human history that's all tangled up with the land there.
Water falling twice. That's what Minneopa means in the Dakota language. It's so beautifully descriptive, isn't it?
It really is. Perfectly captures what makes it unique.
So we've pulled together quite a range of sources for this. History, geology, personal accounts, all sorts of things, to really get into what makes these falls special.
Mm.
Our mission, really, is to give you a compelling look at Minneopa Falls. It's got this rich history, early inhabitants, settler ambitions, and just these massive geological forces at play.
It's quite the mix. A landscape shaped by, well, immense natural power and also those maybe more fleeting human efforts, but impactful nonetheless. So where should we start? The name. The first people.
Let's start there. The name and the people who were there first. So before Minneopa, the Dakota people, specifically the Siston tribe, they called the area Makatosa.
Nakatosa, meaning the goose. Interesting.
Yeah. And their chief was Sintamnaduta. His name meant red all over. His village, it was downstream from the falls.
And the Sisseton were known as the tribe of sixes,
Yeah.
right? Because of how they arranged their lodges, typically in groups of six.
Exactly. But human presence there goes back way further.
Oh, way further. We're talking potentially back to 7,000 BC in the Minnesota River Valley. Just incredible depth of history.
So people have been connected to that valley for millennia.
Right. And we know for sure the late woodland culture, they used the area downstream as a wintering ground.
Yeah.
That was at least 1,000 years ago. So the valley itself was clearly important for a very, very long time.
Okay, let's jump forward quite a bit. Mid-1800s, a different kind of appreciation starts to emerge. 1858, a guy named Minor Porter decides this place could be a resort.
Yeah, he really went for it. Planting trees, flowers, laying out paths. He even built a hotel.
And fenced it all in with arched gates.
Yep. And painted Minneopa a slightly longer version of the name right over the main gate. He saw the potential clearly.
He really did. And his resort even hosted the very first Blue Earth County Fair in 1859. The Agricultural Society put it on there.
Trying to promote the local farming scene. Makes sense.
But that whole resort dream, it didn't last all that long, did it?
No, it was pretty short-lived. You had the Civil War and then the Dakota War of 1862 right here in Minnesota. Those events really changed things.
Yeah, huge upheavals. By the end of the 1860s, the resort wasn't operating anymore. Just shows how bigger events impact local plans.
Absolutely. Tumultuous times back then. But the falls themselves, their natural appeal, that didn't go away. And the next chapter involves the railroad.
Right. Always the railroad in the late 1800s. So the St. Paul and Sioux City Railroad arrives in the late 60s.
And they built a trestle across Minneopa Creek, finished in 1869.
And the owner of the falls then, D.C. Evans, he saw his chance when the railroad built a depot nearby.
He did. He laid out a town site, called it Minneopa.
So a town springs up?
For a while, yeah. It flourished briefly. The falls became, the local hotspot again. Picnics, church gatherings, that sort of thing. A real community center.
But seems like there's a pattern here. Another challenge was coming.
1873. The grasshopper plague.
Devastating. And it lasted for 3 years.
3 long years. It just wiped out agriculture across the region. And the town of Minneopa, being so reliant on that, it just couldn't survive.
So the town was abandoned. Wow.
Yeah. A stark reminder of how vulnerable those early settlements could be.
But even with the town gone, people still kept coming to see the falls, right?
Exactly. The natural beauty was the constant draw. And that enduring appeal eventually led to protecting the place.
Okay, so that brings us to the state park status, 1905.
Yes. State Representative Ezra Gates. He saw the value in preserving it.
He introduced a bill, and it passed.
It did. April 19th, 1905, Minneopa became Minnesota's third state park. A really crucial step.
Securing it for the future. Good move.
Definitely. And preserving it also involves some engineering over the years.
Like that bridge, the arched concrete footbridge.
That was built in 1921. It's such an iconic part of the view now, isn't it? Great spot to watch the water.
Totally. And then later, they had to do some work on the upper falls to stop erosion.
Right. 1928, the London brothers from Mankato came in, The limestone ledge was being undercut, so they basically built a support wall of rock and cement underneath it to stabilize things.
Trying to keep that upper drop from crumbling away.
Exactly. Managing nature, in a way. Which brings us back to some of the deeper human stories connected to this exact spot. We need to talk about Chief Sintamnaduta again.
Yes, his story is so tied to the falls themselves. Near the lower falls, on the left side, there used to be a cave, the Cave of Sintamnaduta.
Named after him. We mentioned his name meant red all over. He also had another name, Nepanamnana.
Meaning 2 fingers. Why was that?
Apparently from an old gun accident. Descriptions say he was tall, striking looking, piercing eyes, high cheekbones.
And his story gets very tragic around the mid-1850s.
Extremely tragic. In 1853, his sister sought refuge from her husband, and Sintamnaduta hid her in that cave at the falls.
Trying to protect her.
Yes, but it led to more conflict. And the next year, 1854, Sintamnaduta himself was murdered.
By Henry Lot. Driven by revenge over some stolen horses traced back to Lot?
Correct. And horrifically, Lot didn't just kill Sintamnaduta, he killed his entire family as well.
It's just awful. And Lot was never caught.
No. He evaded capture. Justice was never served for those murders. It's a really dark part of the area's history.
And then the cave itself, the place his sister hid.
The roof collapsed sometime in the late 1800s. So the physical landmark tied to that part of his story is gone too.
Wow. Such layers of history, some of it incredibly sad, right there at the falls.
It really underscores the connection between people and place. And speaking of the place itself, let's shift focus to how the falls actually formed. The geology is pretty incredible.
Okay, geology time. Let's go back, way back, 15,000 years ago. End of the last ice age.
You got it. Glacial River Warren. This colossal river formed as Lake Agassiz drained, and it basically carved out the huge Minnesota River Valley we see today.
Just massive amounts of water. And Minneopa Falls appeared around 14,000 years ago.
Roughly, yeah. It started where Minneopa Creek first met that giant river. But here's the cool part. It hasn't stayed put.
It's been moving.
Slowly, yes. Moving upstream along the creek bed over thousands of years. It's a process called downcutting.
Okay, so the water erodes the creek bed. How did that create 2 falls?
That's down to the rock itself. The bedrock is Jordan sandstone, but it's not all the same hardness. Some layers are softer, some are tougher.
So the water wears away the softer rock faster.
Exactly. That creates the steps, the 2 distinct drops. Differential erosion. The upper layer is more resistant, forming a ledge, while the rock underneath gets eaten away more easily.
And it's still happening, still moving upstream.
Yep, very slowly, continuous erosion. If you visit, you can really see the Jordan sandstone exposed in the gorge. It comes in different colors, white, tan, pinkish.
You can see the grains and layers.
Definitely. And below the lower fall's main ledge, the sandstone is particularly friable. That means it crumbles easily under the water's force.
Which helps carve out that deep pool in the amphitheater shape around the falls too, right? The spray and the freeze-thaw cycles breaking down the rock.
Precisely. All those forces working together over millennia.
So let's picture the falls today. The upper one is, what, 7 to 10 feet high and stabilized with concrete.
Correct. Then there's a short stretch of creek, maybe 50, 75 feet.
And then the big one, the lower falls, about a 40-foot drop.
Much more dramatic. And connecting them, or rather spanning the creek nearby, is that footbridge we mentioned.
Giving you those great views.
And the whole scene changes so much depending on the water levels.
Right. After heavy rain, it must be roaring.
Oh, yeah. But then in late summer, if it's been dry, the flow can really slow down. Sometimes in major droughts, it might even stop flowing altogether for a bit.
Wow. And in winter?
Winter's really cool. You can get this massive ice cone forming at the base of the falls, sometimes building all the way up to the top. Just solid ice.
Nature sculpture. Incredible. It's just amazing thinking about all the things, geology, history, human efforts that have shaped this one spot.
It really is. And we should also give a nod to the WPA, the Works Progress Administration.
Right. During the Great Depression, they did work in the park too.
They did, between 1937 and 1940. A lot of improvements. Specifically around the falls, they built those stone stairs you use to get down to the different viewpoints.
So those stairs are part of that history too, making it easier for people to access and enjoy the falls.
Exactly. Part of the park's infrastructure that visitors still benefit from today.
Now, I know the park is bigger than just the falls area. There's the Bison range on the other side. Right. We should probably mention that briefly, even though our focus is the falls.
Yeah, it's important context. Minneopa is home to part of the Minnesota Bison Conservation Herd. It's a separate area, about 325 acres.
And it's a genetically significant herd, isn't it? Trying to preserve those pure bison lines.
That's the goal. They have bison ambassadors there too, educating visitors. It's a big conservation effort, funded by various sources like the LCCMR. But yes, geographically separate from the waterfall section we've been discussing.
Good to know. So for hiking right around the falls themselves.
There's a main trail, the Waterfalls Area Trail. It's short, maybe 0.2 miles one way. Parts are cement, parts dirt, and it includes those steep WPA stairs. That's the best way to see the double waterfall and those historic features up close.
Perfect. So when you walk that path, stand on that bridge. You're really standing in a place where geology, Dakota history, settler dreams, preservation efforts, it all comes together.
Beautifully put. Water falling twice. It sounds simple, but it represents such a deep, complex story.
From the Dakota connection, their reverence for the land,
To Minor Porter's resort dream and the town that rose and fell.
the power of glacial river Warren, and the slow work of erosion.
And the decision to protect it as a state park for everyone. It's all there.
So maybe as you go about your day, just picture those ancient rivers. Think about the people whose lives unfolded near that falling water, the triumphs and the tragedies.
Imagine the sound, the spray, the sheer persistence of it all.
Perhaps this deep dive has sparked some curiosity. Maybe it inspires you to visit Minneopa Falls yourself, to feel those stories in the air and see that water falling twice.
And if you are intrigued, there's always more to explore about Minnesota's amazing state parks and the whole fascinating saga of the Minnesota River Valley. Definitely worth looking into.